Welcome to your passion, purpose, and personal brand. If you've ever felt like selling your services meant selling your soul, you are not alone. Today's guest is Brooke Greening. She is here to flip the script on what sales is about. A former counselor turned sales and marketing expert, Brooke knows that sales isn't about pressure, it's about people. And with 20 years of experience and a track record of helping businesses grow 30% year over year, she helps business owners stop spiraling, get the words out, and build those authentic connections that convert. So you see why she's on the show. We're talking about authenticity here. And today we're going to explore how Brooke helps entrepreneurs ditch the sales bro energy and have those sales conversations that serve without being gimmicky, pushy, or manipulative. She's the creator of the Service Sales Framework, host of the Sipping Matcha podcast, and one of the featured speakers at the upcoming Sell Well conference in September, where she will be leading the sales system optimization track. So if you are ready to humanize your sales approach and feel more confident closing clients without selling your soul, this conversation is going to be for you. So Brooke, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to be able to talk with everyone and we do not have to be a jerk to be good at sales. And I believe that with all my heart. And I love when people ask me to talk about it. So thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we're going to start with that statement. You don't have to be a jerk. And it's very clear that you started from a career in about people. So you started from a career in counseling and you went into sales and marketing. How did that transition happen and approach the way that you influence how you approach sales today?
Yes. So in regards to just a real quick story, I was getting my master's in counseling at that point, and I was also working at Wells Fargo Financial, and that was a call center. And that was a call center where I was getting yelled at all the time, like every 2 or 3 minutes on the call, because this was a really hard day for people. They had just been denied a loan from the bank, from Wells Fargo. So then they're like, well, great idea. Let's have Wells Fargo Financial see if they're able to help them with a loan. So I was calling people after they had just been denied a loan. And because I was getting my master's at that point, I was calling them at night. So 6 people had already been trying to call them during the day. And I came in on like call 7, 8, and 9. That was my job. And I quickly learned sales is very similar to counseling. We are listening. We're trying to understand what their problems are. And if we don't make it about us, we're able to help a lot of people and make a lot of sales in a way that feels authentic to us and isn't that sales bro type of energy. So that's how it all started.
Yeah. So unpack that philosophy a little bit more about not making it about us. So what does making it about us sound like versus not making it about us?
I think a lot of people actually don't think that they're making it about themselves. I think they're on the wavelength of no, that I value my customer. I want to be able to help my customer. But if we're not helping to lead the conversation, if we're not asking good questions to truly uncover what those customers' problems are, and then being able to say, hey, I can help you or I can't help you, and this is who you should be talking to instead, that's when we know we're making it about them instead of about us. If our whole goal is more like, I need to tell them this, or I need to pitch this, that's when we're making it about us. We're also making it about us when we start trying to be really, really kind and gracious, but we're not actually leading anyone to any type of decision. We're making it about us because we're trying to be comfortable instead of leading the conversation and directing them and giving them clarity, which can sometimes feel uncomfortable on our side.
Yes. And that leads me to think about how many times sales conversations are about how we feel first. And then our need to close a sale comes in, which all of that comes through, right?
Yeah.
And then the customer's sitting there. What about me?
And I think you're absolutely right. And it's not bad. I am not here to say, no, you can't hit your sales targets. No, you don't have a quota to hit. If you're in sales, your job is to bring revenue into the company, whether it's your own business or you're working with someone else. And so it's not that we are taking that away, but it's saying when we focus on that, our customers can see that. And then it's about us instead of about them. So we can do it in 2 ways. We can do it more in a passive aggressive way where we're like, I I don't want to be pushy. So then we're still making it about us because we're not actually leading them. Or on the flip side, we're being pushy, we're being manipulative and all of those things. And it's making it about us. So there's two ways you can make it about you unintentionally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we don't really ever think about sales as leadership, but it's so much. You are doing your audience a favor by being the leader in the conversation.
Yeah. And I learned that a lot when I went into the senior living industry, because I was literally talking to families who were having heartbreaking moments, trying to figure out, how do I help my mom or my dad in this situation? Like, we always promised we would never be in this situation. So there's a lot of guilt that's on them. And then how do I make a decision? How do we move forward? And so you can't be gimmicky. You can't make it all about you when you're having those sales conversations. And so all of that counseling came into play when that happened as well, before we even started our own business. So it all just kind of continued to add on top of each other.
I can see what a benefit that was. But Brooke, when we look at sales, you can see when you tell a business owner, you're going to have to be in business development or sale, or you're going to have to hunt for your own food and fill your pipeline. You can almost visibly see them move back, right? Their bodies move back. So there's a lot of misconceptions people have about sales. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of damage those misconceptions could cause. So let's talk about maybe what are some of the misconceptions you observe in your role, and how do you see that play out?
Yeah. Well, I was just working with a client just the other day, and she shared with me as we worked through our program. She was like, you know what? I never really understood it. But the way I came to a sales conversation, because I didn't want to come across as pushy and manipulative, because she had those misconceptions that's like, you either do that or you swing all the way to the other side. She's like, I realized I was just taking orders, and that's not what I want to be doing. And I'm not actually leading them. And so that's one of the big misconceptions is, if you feel like you're supposed to lead your conversation, we feel like that's being pushy. We feel like that's being manipulative, because there are techniques out there that teach you manipulate, twist it, use fear, all of those things to push them to make a decision. And so pushing them to make a decision and guiding them to a decision are two totally different things, but we put them together a lot. And that's a big misconception. So when people start to think, oh, you're going to do sales coaching, you're going to teach me how to sell, you're just going to teach me how to manipulate nicely. That's a lot of what the misconception can be sometimes.
Yeah, I can see that. And I think too, when we look at sales conversations, there's that emotional toll that I was talking about, right? So what do you say, or how do you work with someone who dreads sales conversations, or they tell themselves, I'm just bad at sales? How do you transfer that mindset?
Well, I think one, it's really important for people to understand being good at what you do does not mean that you're going to be great at sales. Like, it is a skill to be able to learn. But on the flip side, it doesn't mean if the sales aren't going well, that what you're offering is not valuable and what you're doing is not a great work. And so I think that's important to know. But the other piece is, another misconception that can happen is people feel like, well, maybe I'm not good at sales because I have to be talking all the time. I have to be the one not answering. I have to be the one talking all the time, asking questions, all of that, instead of understanding a great conversation is where you're talking 30% of the time and they're talking 70% of the time. You're truly there to understand, what problems are they facing? Can I help them? And if I can, great. We're going to talk about that. If I can't, then I am going to give them other resources. And when people find out that that's what I'm doing in a sales conversation, that leads to more sales than what I'm doing, that is a big lift off of their shoulders, because they're like, oh, I don't have to do an act. I don't have to do a pitch. I don't have to turn into somebody that I'm not. I can truly serve them, because that's what they wanted to do in the beginning.
Right. And I can remember one of the best sales conversations I was in. It was not me delivering being the salesperson, but I was being a potential client for this person. And they started the call out. I still remember to this day, here's our agenda for the call. And if we get to the end of this call, it's not a great fit, then it's okay. And what that did, Brooke, is that lowered my defenses, as in, I could truly listen and I didn't have to have all my excuses ready on why it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
It really just reframes it. So I think that is an amazing thing to let people understand that it doesn't have to be about pushing information.
No, it doesn't. And when it is pushing information, that's why everyone's uncomfortable. That's why the person who's talking is uncomfortable. That's why the potential customer is uncomfortable, because that just doesn't work in general. Like in life, I don't do well when someone pushes me. No one really does. But if someone's listening and helping me to make the best decision for me, for my benefit, then the walls go down. And you're absolutely right. I love that you say that. That's one of the very first pieces we talk in regards to setting expectations and what that looks like, and helping them to know we're talking about how we can help. If we can't, we're going to give you other resources, helping them to know that, because for sales professionals, like HubSpot says 3% of the population trust us. Yeah. So that's not great. And you go to marketing and it's 5%. And you're like, well, awesome. Super glad I chose the role that I did. But it's all about that trust factor. And so I think people want to know, how can I build trust and how can I make more sales? Like, they want both of those pieces. And sometimes it feels like you can't have both, but you can. And one way to do that is setting that expectation in the very beginning, because that helps them not to their eyes to glaze over. That helps them not to try to figure out, okay, are you going to tell me what this investment is going to be? Or do I have to get on another call before we start having any of those conversations? Those are the things that they're thinking. They're just not going to necessarily tell us that. And so by us sharing, we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about that investment and see if this is a good fit. If it's not, then I'll give you other resources. Like, my goal today is you to be closer to solving the problems that you have than when we got on the call. That is my goal.
Yeah. And there's a lot of space and breathing room in that lets me be more present to those conversations.
Yeah. And then you're going to be more honest with me.
Mm-hmm.
Your guard isn't going to be up, and you're not going to give me like surface answers of what's going on. We're really going to get to understand where you're at, because you are looking at me as a trusted guide instead of someone just trying to make a sale.
Yes. And I just think about, like, what a different conversation that is walking into that. Just not, because I think that's where the sleaze and the bro marketing and all of that comes in.
Yeah. And it takes so much pressure off of the sales person at that point as well, because now they don't have to do something. They don't have to make sure that the pitch is right. They don't have to make sure that they got the fear right, or whatever the case is. They're just able to say, like, hey, I'm excited to talk to this business owner. Do I want to work with them? Absolutely. Right. That sounds like a great thing, but they're excited to figure out, well, how can I truly help them?
Right. And it avoids that. I almost, as you were talking there, Brooke, I almost see this as, when you go into, so I'm thinking about, I don't know, I've been watching some of these period pieces where these, in the old days, there would be a dance, right? And the male and the female, they knew exactly what they were going to do. It was all choreographed. And that's really what I kind of see a sales conversation like. You're going to come in and your role is to say this, and my role is to say this. And we perform, and we get on the other side, we're both exhausted. So how refreshing this is.
And I think I'm not against scripts, because sometimes people will say, hey, Brooke, I need a little bit of help, like in the beginning, because it's kind of like training wheels. And so I'm not against it, but I do tell people pretty quickly, you follow a script, it's going to get rocky, because nobody follows the lines. And then you have no idea what you're saying. So you need to have guardrails. You need to have places where you can move from one piece of the conversation to the next.
Yes.
But if it's like, you do this, I do this, you do this, I do this, at some point things can maybe get a little bit confusing, unless everybody's all of the trust is there. And now we're just having a normal human conversation like we would have with our friends, with our spouse, with our neighbors. That's truly the goal. How to be able to have it feel like that. Yeah.
You don't want to be off kilter when they miss their line, do you?
Right. No. And I was in drama, so I always use that a lot, because we know what it's like when we're like in the play or in the musical and I'm singing and you missed your line. The music still goes and now you're trying to catch up. Like, that's literally what's happening in a sales conversation if they're just that dependent on a script.
Exactly, exactly. Well, I want to talk about a tool that you have is called the Service Sales Framework. What does service stand for in this, and how does this change the game in a sales conversation?
The service framework is an acronym for the word service. And we did that intentionally to help people know in any sales conversation that they're having, it is not about them. It is about their potential customer. And we made it so painfully obvious that we put it in that acronym. It also worked well in regards to how it was set up. So the service framework helps guide people through their sales conversation from one, which is S, setting expectations, all the way until the N, which is E, explaining next steps in a way that values the customer, in a way that allows the sales professional to be able to control the conversation in a way that's serving both of them instead of feeling like this is a script or we've got a pitch that we're getting ready to do. It just walks them through. So you've got setting expectations, E is establishing rapport, R is recognize the problem, V is verbalize the value, I is identify objections, C is create urgency, and E is explain next steps. And we walk through the mindsets of each of those pieces. And then we walk through what does that actually look like? And then how to help people prepare for every sales conversation. Because that's the other piece. People feel like I can do this, and then they're winging it. And it's not effective for them. So this gives them a structure that can feel authentic to them, but works and has worked over and over and over again to be able to serve your clients, to be able to build that trust and make more sales.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I could see the power of having this because, you think about someone who, we'll just use an example, leaves corporate, starts their own business, whatever type of service provider business it might be. And you think, I'm really good at what I do. Whatever problem they're going to have, I'm going to be able to answer. But that's not something you've done before. And so to have a framework to follow, some guardrails of what to do, and some of the motivations and understanding behind, I could see would be really powerful.
And it helps because when you know what you're saying and when you know how you're guiding the conversation, that also then completely changes your sales process because now you have to realize, well, what is our next step? How are we going to move forward? And that is a lot of the aha moments that people have when I'm working with them because they realize, I thought I had this all nailed down, but now that you're like asking me to explain it clearly, it's not. And so then it ties all together. So this is how we're leading the conversation right now. And then this is how we're going to build your system process in the background. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be 13 steps to a funnel, but you need to have a repeatable process that you can do to be able to continue to build that momentum in your sales.
I think it's really good. That's going to be really powerful. So one thing we know, you and I both are in a similar space, or at least started out that way. I've moved a little bit off of that into more of personal branding, authenticity, talking about building trust. But whenever we hear sales, we also hear marketing. And there is this long-standing, I just want to say tension in the business industry about what's more important, what should come first, what is the priority. And I've seen it in organizations where every other department works well together except sales and marketing, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So how can you help clients distinguish between the two and know which one to focus on first? So, if someone is running a business, entrepreneur, small business owner, where do I start?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to completely reiterate what you're saying, because when I was in corporate, we were in silos. That's what we called it. And so a lot of times I would be getting emails from marketing and they would be like, this is a new thing. This is what we're doing. And I'd be like, I don't really know if that's necessarily connecting to the people that I'm talking to, but okay, we'll do it. But also, I don't know exactly what you want me to do. It's not entirely clear. Like what you're telling them is going to happen and what we're telling them is going to happen are in two different realms. And so I would go and I would talk with them and it would just be very gracious, but like, Brooke, you're in sales. What do you know about marketing? And my gracious response is, you're in marketing. What in the world do you know about the people that we're talking to day by day? And the thing is, we were telling two competing stories. That's what happens. Marketing and sales can compete because what happens is when you confuse those roles, that's when things get really frustrating. And so sales can tend to be like the hero and look at us and this is what we're doing, because they are bringing in a lot of money. That is literally their job. If they are not doing that, they are not going to have a job in sales. It's pretty clear. If you bring in income, you stay. If you don't, it's not meant to be toxic. It's just that is how it works. In marketing, it can be a little bit vague because that's not exactly connected to it. And so sales can get really frustrated and be like, we're making all the sales, and marketing gets frustrated because they're like, you wouldn't have any if we didn't give you the leads. And then sales is saying, but I don't think you're giving us the right leads. And so you've got two competing stories. How to be able to unite them together. And what I really encourage is, one, especially for like business owners, they need to ask themselves the question, because I'm a marketing consultant and a sales coach, and I get this question all the time. And I say, do you have a marketing problem or do you have a sales problem? Because you have to know which one is which. And the best way to determine that is if you're getting good qualified leads, people who want what you have to offer and can pay for it. It's great if they like what you offer, but they can't pay for it. That's not a good lead. But if they like they want it and they can pay for it, that is a good lead. If you are getting those and you feel like you're getting a good amount of those, you do not have a marketing problem. But if you need like 50 or 20 or whatever it is just to equal one sale, that is not marketing's. That's not their problem. They gave you the leads that you need. Now we need to look at, how are you handling them? How are you working with them? How are you talking with them? How are you bringing them to those next levels of commitment? And so that's the very first piece. And that's, I think, when it gets really frustrating. And I completely understand with my marketing friends, because they work with these big companies sometime and they're like, we did it. We did everything they asked us to do. We knocked it out of the park. We gave them incredible leads. And yet they're still mad at us because they didn't make the revenue that they wanted. And it was not the marketing's, it was not their fault at all. They did it. On the flip side, sales can be like, we're doing it. Like we're talking to people, we are closing on people, but we do not have the amount of people that we need. And then that's when we look at marketing and say, okay, how can we bring more qualified leads? So that's the very first thing you want to do. If you have qualified leads and you have enough of them, you don't have a marketing problem. If you need a lot of them, you may be struggling in what's going on in your sales. And I think then that can help people, because a lot of times business owners will try to hire someone to fix a problem they don't actually have.
It's a really good point. And what I hear in this is how critically important it is before marketing starts creating anything is to understand who is the salesperson talking to.
Yeah.
That is qualified.
Yes.
And what are their problems? What is it? So then they can create the marketing that speaks to them. Because if you're speaking with a message that doesn't land with the person that you want,
yes,
you're just spinning your wheels. So we both know how important that is.
And it's not, they didn't hire marketing to hit the streets and to talk with people. And so that's where they need to be working together, and not in a competing factor, but in a collaborative environment to say, hey, these are the problems that they're facing. This is what they're doing. That's why it's so important, like you said, to have like a unified story instead of, we think the problem is this. And sales is like, well, really, this is the problem. And so then if that messaging gets confusing, that's going to affect it. And then also, if messaging is sharing a completely different story and a completely different outcome, and sales comes in and then they make the sale and then they don't get that outcome, then that causes a lot of frustration as well. And then sales can feel like, well, this was a bait and switch, and that's not actually what they wanted it to. And marketing's like, no, it's not. This is what we were told to do. And so you don't have to be best friends and exchange Christmas cards, but you need to be able to respect each other in the elements and in the skills that you have, because marketing is a completely different skill than sales. Absolutely. And a lot of times people don't really think that. And so just to have that collaboration and to do that, because when marketing and sales work together, then your business is going to be completely unstoppable.
It is. And I think also, I've been in a situation before where I was in marketing and sales function. And then when the customer came in, what we told them they were going to get was not actually what was delivered by
Right.
operations. And
Yes.
so that brings in the other piece too, is then how do you look as a salesperson when you promise this, right?
Yes.
They come in and they're looking like, where's the experience? So it really is important to have this
Trifecta.
cross-functional collaboration and conversations. We're all rowing the same direction, people.
Yeah, we had that in senior living because the nursing, the sales, and the executive director all had to be on the same page. Because if we were talking to a family and saying, this is what's going to happen, but the nursing was not made aware of it, and they're like, hold on, we didn't agree to that. And then now the executive director is coming in and they have to talk to the families that are really frustrated. It could look like sales was just trying to say whatever they needed to say to get them in, instead of everybody just being on the same page. That's why I love assessments in regards to a lot of things, but that is a great discovery tool to truly understand what's going on with the customer and the problems that they're facing, because then it's them telling us, and then we get to share it with the people that it needs to be shared with so that we can give them that great experience that they're needing, or helping them fix a problem or whatever it is. But you're exactly right. It can fall apart a lot. And to be fair, sales can be very manipulative and they can just say whatever they need to say to make a sale. And that does happen. But there are a lot of people in this world that's not what they want to do. But it looks like that because there's been miscommunication of what the actual results are going to be.
Yeah, really good point. So as a potential client maybe listening to this episode, Brooke, one thing that we know is in sales, it could be like a roller coaster. So we can call it, and you call it the sales roller coaster. So what is one thing, or I know one of your strengths is helping people get off that sales roller coaster. What does that mean? And how can we stabilize our lead flow and income as a result?
Yeah. The reason why I call it the sales roller coaster is because when we get on a roller coaster, we're really excited. And then we're starting at the low, and then we shoot up, and then we go back down, and then we land in the exact same spot. Like, it's done. And some of us want to toss our cookies, and some of us thought it was a fun time. And that's what it means on a sales roller coaster, where you're like in this feast mode, and then you're in the famine mode. And so I did the wrong actions, but like in feasting, we've got all of these sales and it's incredible. And it's a great month or a great quarter. And then all of a sudden we're like, whoa, what we tank. And that's what we don't want to do. And we don't have to. But the way to do that is to truly be intentional and know what's happening and what we call our pipeline. So we say, okay, let's just break it into 3 sections. You've got your 0 to 30 buying time frame. You've got your 30 to 60 buying time frame. And you've got your 60 to 90 buying time frame. If all we ever do is focus on the 0 to 30, that's why we go up and down and up and down and up and down, because we're just focused on just people buying right now. We want to focus on people buying right now, but we cannot forget the people we talk to in 30 to 60 and 60 to 90. And that's also where that service framework comes in, because we need to know, where are they at? Not everybody is going to buy from us right now. Not everybody has that need. And so what can happen is we talk to someone, they didn't buy, so then they're just gone. And if you actually had intentional follow-up in helping to walk through, then your 60 to 90 starts to move to your 30 to 60, and then your 30 to 60 starts to move to your 1 to 30. And that's how you have a much stronger pipeline. If you just focus on 1 to 30s, that's when you have great months, and then that's when you don't. And so it's not a one conversation and then we're done and then we never talk to you again. It is, okay, if we can't help you, okay, we completely understand that. How can we give you other resources, and off you go. But if it's not the right timing, if it's not the right quarter, if they have to talk to other people, we lose a lot of our customers, because we have way more customers than we actually think we have, because we just are zoned in on the ones that might be buying right now. Yeah. And that's how we get in that big roller coaster.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And how many times, just because somebody said no once or not now once, then we feel like maybe, if I come back again, they already told me no. Then it's our perception, right? Our mental piece that we're going through, when really following up later, the timing may be perfect at that point.
And this goes back to us almost making it about ourselves again. So as soon as we hear no, then we're like, it's got to stop. Like we can't have a conversation. And that's when people get nervous because they look at my service framework and they're like, identifying objections and creating urgency. I knew it. I knew you were just like every other salesperson. And I'm like, no, you can use identifying objections and creating urgency to serve them. Mm-hmm. I am not asking questions to twist their arm to say yes to me. But when someone says no, that's actually when the conversation is actually starting because they're being honest with me and they're telling me either I don't see the value in this, I'm confused in what's going on, or this just isn't the right timing. None of those answers are wrong. It's our job to understand what is it that they need? What is the time frame that they need? What is it in their sales process? When you start getting into bigger companies, they may not even be the one making that decision. And so the no is not a bad thing. That's how you actually can start to figure out, okay, is this a no or is this a no 30 to 60, 60 to 90? Like that's when you're actually having the conversation and you're beginning to move things forward. But a lot of people hear no, and then they're just like,
then they start feeling bad about themselves. See, I'm bad at sales, all of that comes in.
Yeah. And they backpedal. Then they're like, oh, okay, I completely understand. I know that it's a really busy time for you. And then they are like telling them reasons of why they're saying no. And that may not even be the case. And so we talk about that in regards to objections are a great thing. You want to know them. You don't want to be creating them. That's what we do. We're just like, oh, okay. Well, I know it's a busy time. They didn't say that. Oh, I know. It's a pretty big investment. They didn't say that, but now those are things that they're thinking about. Yeah. And so it's just being able to be comfortable with hearing no and knowing how to be able to respond to that. And if we just hear no and we stop, we've lost a good amount of customers at that point.
And I also hear in that too, Brooke, like the energy of confidence that you bring into the conversation, because otherwise what you're doing, it's almost like putting the other person in a power position that you're serving. And I do know that, serving doesn't have to be a power piece.
No.
You could serve them as a partner. Yeah. But, when I hear that, and so that makes me go to my next question I have is you talk about the very first few minutes of a sales conversation can make or break the deal.
Yeah.
So what should we, because where we start, is going to be indicative of where we're going to end. What should we be doing in those early moments?
Yeah. Well, it was just like what you said when you had that best sales conversation. That's literally the very first piece. We're setting the expectation. And by setting the expectation, sometimes people are like, so I'm telling them I want them to buy. I was like, no, that might be your expectation. Not what theirs is going to be. Setting expectations is helping them to know what can they expect in these next 30, 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I literally say something just in regards to, I really appreciate being able to meet with you today. The goal of this conversation is for me to understand more about your business and where you might be having some struggles. Mm-hmm. If I can be able to help you with that, I'm going to share that with you in the investment, and we can talk about what those next steps look like. If we find this is not a great fit, then I want to be able to give you some other resources so that you can be able to continue to keep solving the problems that you need. Is it okay if I ask you a few questions before we start?
Yeah.
That's what we would do. And then when you hear that no, you're just going back to what you promised them. Mm-hmm. Okay, if it's not a good fit for me, then now I need to understand who is going to be a good fit for you. So that's why we're not done with this conversation. We're going to figure out how I can be able to help you. But that sets you up for success and it sets your customer up for success. If we don't do that, if we just start saying, where are you calling from? How's the weather? One, if you say, where are you calling from? Or tell me about your business, whether you mean to or not, you are literally screaming from the mountaintops. I have absolutely no idea. I don't know anything about your business. I don't know anything about what's going on. And I didn't actually take the time to actually figure anything out. Mm-hmm. And even though you don't mean that to come across that way, that's literally how you tell your potential customer, I don't actually care about you or the problems that you're facing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, go ahead.
It really does set a different tone when you get on a call and someone has at least looked at your LinkedIn profile or looked at your website or could ask a specific question. I see this. Tell me what that is, right? Because you know they've done some homework.
Yeah. And we're not saying we're building that rapport in regards to telling them like, I looked at your website and you need to fix this, this, and that.
Right.
Like, no, we're not diagnosing problems, but we're asking them questions that are meaningful to them. So like, I read this blog article about what did you find about it? Or what was the response that you got? It just helps them to be like, oh, I don't actually think she's going to pitch at me for the next 30 minutes. Like, I think we're actually going to be able to have a regular conversation. And that's what I want. That's what I want for all of our clients. That's what I want when we teach the service framework. I want them to feel like this is a different sales conversation than we have ever had. And I want to make it really difficult when they go to the competitor because they're still thinking about the conversation that they've just had with you.
Yeah.
That's what I want. And setting the expectation starts that. If we don't do that, two things happen. Either we're just kind of rambling all around and we think we're having good rapport, but like at some point people are like, we gotta go.
Move this on.
Yeah. Or they take control. And then that's not a fun situation either. Also, if they do take control, setting the expectations helps to graciously take it back. So people will get on the call because maybe they've had a really bad experience before. They had no desire to talk to anybody today, but they have to. And so they're already like agitated, frustrated, whatever it is. And they may just start firing questions off. So instead of us like reeling back and being like, oh, I got to be able to answer these. I don't want to be rude. We can just say, hey, I understand you have a lot of questions and I understand this is really important to you. In order for me to answer those appropriately, I need to understand a little bit more about your business. So if I can just share, the goal for this conversation is to and then we're back and being able to lead the conversation, but not talking all the time.
Yeah, that's really good. So I know, Brooke, that you offer a sales accelerator lab. Tell us who that is designed for and, like, what does that container look like?
Yeah. So this is designed for business owners, specifically in that service industry where they need to be having sales conversations. And so I do it both in group. And so it's up to 10 people and that goes monthly. And then I do it one-on-one as well. So the group is 4 weeks and the one-on-one is 6 weeks. And we work through the service framework in regards to what I talked about. And then we're also then applying it each week to the conversations that they're having and their whole sales process. So it truly builds momentum for them and their business. They're clear in regards to what they're talking about. They're making more sales and they're feeling a lot more confident as they're walking into it. Yeah. So if people are feeling like, I know what to do, like I've had a successful business, but I want to continue to keep going and I can't do what I'm doing now. Like something's not working. Then the Sales Accelerator Lab is perfect for them.
Nice. Well, one thing I'm excited about that we're both on this call together today is that we are both going to the Sellwell Conference, Houston, Texas, September 11th and 12th. And you are a track champion in the sales system optimization track. So, and then I'll be
surprise.
And then I'll be on the personal brand track, but we're not going to talk about that today. But it does go back to what you said. If you're in sales and you're trying to figure out how you can be trusted, that is one thing that I'll bring to the table with the personal branding piece. But for sales system optimization, Brooke, what can attendees expect from your session? Because I believe you're actually giving 2 sessions, aren't you?
I am. So the first one, we're going to look in regards to the service framework. Like, how can you apply that in your business? And not only in regards to your sales conversations, because that is a big piece of it, but what's happening in your sales process? And I'm not saying like, do you have an email campaign? Do you have a funnel going? But I'm just saying, how are you responding to leads? When are you responding to leads? What does that process look like? How are you making sure that you're able to have as many conversations as you can? So many times we try to market our way to our sales goals, but if we're having higher ticket services, we have to talk to people and we have to have a system to be able to make that happen. Yeah. And so we work through how do we make that happen? And then what do we actually say when we do that? So people that's what they can expect. So either if they're doing that or if they have team members that they're like, ooh, that would be that would be a benefit to them. Those would be the type of people to go there. And then I'm doing how to scale your sales team because there are things you need to know. That's the other session that we're doing in regards to how to do that. So whether you're going to hire your first one or whether you're like in 5 or 6, there are good things to be thinking about in regards to when you're building it. And then there are pitfalls to be able to avoid. And so we're going to be talking about those things as well. Specifically, like you need a language that everybody understands. If a lot of times people are like, well, I onboarded them, like that is not the same as sales training. There are 2 totally different things. And so that's what we'll be talking about in that breakout session.
Well, it sounds like valuable information. And, I want to go to all of these sessions. I don't know how we're going to do it.
I know, especially when we're talking at the same time.
Yeah, we're talking.
That's going to be hard.
Yeah. But I think also, the thing is this conference, Sell Well, which is sponsored by the Good Humans Growth Network, which if we listen a couple of weeks previously, Catherine Brown is the founder and visionary behind it. But what she does in the fall is has this B2B sales conference tied with networking with hundreds of people in the room. Some people are already part of the Good Humans Growth Network, which is a conglomeration of several different groups that come together. I will have one of them. Beyond the Transaction is the name of my group. But also she brings in about 40% of guests that will be there. So there will be hundreds of people at this. And in the spring, she has another conference called Grow, which is personal development and networking. Again, 40% of the people in the room are guests.
Yeah.
Now, I know you and I have known Catherine for a number of years.
Yes.
But this, I believe, is your first event that you're going to be at her Good Humans Growth Network. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. In person. Yes, that is correct.
Yes. Yes.
Very excited.
And it is. And one thing I want to point out that's different for our listeners is if you are contemplating at all going to this, when you think about it, if you think about what you are investing in marketing for your business, this is an enormous value because you're going to get all of this training. You're going to be in a room where I will tell you, I went to her event in the spring, Grow. And what is so different about this, Brooke, is you are in a room where everyone is there to meet people, find out what you do, and who can I connect you to.
Yeah.
It is a totally different field than any other conference I've been to. But the value add up on that is the sooner you buy your ticket, which if you can buy it before July 31st, you get a break on that. But the sooner you buy your ticket, what happens that Catherine does that is so unique. She finds out what you do, who you're looking for. She starts connecting people before the conference.
She does.
She has meetings where you can get on a Zoom before the conference and start meeting these people. She sets it up where you have the names of people where you can set up, you can connect with them on LinkedIn, you can reach out, you can have your own coffees. So by the time you get to the conference, this is not the first time you've seen these people.
Yeah.
And talk about the acceleration of relationships. It's amazing. It's amazing.
I'm so excited.
It is. It's going to be a great conference and a great way to meet really, truly good humans in that network. So as we get ready to wrap up, Brooke, anything else you would like to say to that business owner who's out there who knows they need to do sales and they just need that nudge of how it really impacts their business?
Yeah. I would just encourage you. One, a lot of times self-reflection is really helpful. And so sometimes we feel like I've got it. Like I know what to do. But if you have like this feeling where you're like, I want to do more. I know I can do more in my business. That's really where the biggest change that can happen in your revenue is your sales pretty quickly. And so one thing that we created was a sales conversation assessment. So if you're just trying to figure out, hey, how do I actually line up with serving my clients? How do I talk about urgency? How do I explain next steps? How do I make sure I've got my 30 days and 60 to 90 and plus? Then that conversation assessment may be a really good tool for you. It's completely free and you can take it and it'll give you some information back. If you want even more detailed information, you can give your email, but it just gives you, it's a scorecard. It helps you to see in all of the steps that we talked about in the service framework, how are you actually doing? So that then you can know, well, what could I change today to be able to make more sales? Because it really can be that simple. You can make changes and you don't have to rewrite everything that you're doing. The best piece is that and it's talking about at the Sell Well conference, because we're talking about being unshakable. That's how you want to be able to approach your sales conversations. And it's not because you're amazing and you have an incredible product, but it's just because you're coming from a place of, I know I can help you. And I know I can have a conversation to figure out if this is going to be the best fit or not. And that gives you so much confidence to then keep going and keep talking to people and keep getting in front of people. And that's how it's going to continue to grow. If you want to make more money in your business, your sales is the best way to be able to do that.
Yes. And if you don't have sales, you don't have business. And if you don't have a business, why are we here?
You have a really expensive hobby.
That's exactly right. So what a refreshing conversation today with you, Brooke. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. It was great to be here. Thank you.
All right. So for our listener, whether you're struggling to verbalize your value, stuck in your own head, or just tired of those outdated sales tactics that don't work anymore, Brooke offers a path forward rooted in service and clarity, not manipulation. We don't need that anymore. And if this episode resonated with you, I encourage you to check out her Sales Accelerator Lab at buildingmomentum.info, which will be down in the show notes, or connect with her on LinkedIn. And if you're ready to level up your sales approach, join Brooke and I for our sessions at the Sell Well Conference on September 11th and 12th in Houston, Texas. And again, check the link below. So until next time, remember that your presence is your power. And when you lead with authenticity, you don't just close clients, you build trust that lasts. I'm Lisa McGuire for your Passion, Purpose, and Personal Brand podcast. We'll see you here next week.